fear is not real. The only place that fear can exist is in our thoughts of the future. It is a product of our imagination. Do not misunderstand me. Danger is very real, but fear is a choice.
Greetings world. We are on DK. As we continue turning our document L the Bloodlines into video, today we must go back just a bit, to around 129 BC. We have detailed the beginnings of the elite bloodline, starting with Cain and learning about the tribes of Naphtali, Dan and Asher. We have watched the families grow and spread. In our last video we discussed the Roman area and line that had been in power there since 2500 BC. What was the Naphtali line before the families known as the tribe of Dan sailed to the American continent and up to Britain and Scandinavia? We have seen their battles and laws and religions. We learned how the bloodline split after Troy, leaving many to stay in the Germanic area across the Rhine. Today we will discuss the line of the Germanic tribes, and you will now see how they went on to occupy the Asian lands and Europe. Genealogy is fact. Indisputable proof. Proof of history. Proof of DNA. Proof of all things. Keep in mind they do not use our calendar or our language. They use the original calendar, which they call the Gregorian calendar, and they use Akkadian code and Nicene code. Everything you have ever been told is a lie, even the days of the month. And the more disinformation the elite create, the further you stay from the truth. Around 129 BC, an elite few separated from the population of the Romans who were the pure blood, meaning the ones who still had the most condensed elite pure blood Rh negative. They separated from the deluded populace, the Muggles. Over time people forgot about them, as they were few in number when they left and lived in an area completely cut off from the rest of the world, a bit like they are today, living in big, rural estates surrounded by walls and fences. They had traveled deep into the woods across the Rhine and inhabited Illyria. They reunited with the remnant bloodline from Troy, and the purification began. We have already seen a great deal of the wars that went on from this group. The area we speak of now was called Illyricum but changed to Pannonia around 20 BC, only to be changed to Khazaria after this. Then Juthungi, and later many others. It was named after Pan, their main god. He goes by many names including Archon, god of Saturn, the star, El and Apollo. Pan is known as a protector of shepherds, creator of music, deceiver and sexual deviant. The goat man who plays his pan flute, named after himself, hypnotizing children, women, men and animals to orgies and other sadistic and perverted acts. He is the piper, the companion of Santa Claus, who has been remade into a cheerful elf. The black half-goat man was sent out by the Santa Claus who lived in the north, to lure children out of their safe homes at night by giving them candies. Then he would tie them up in a bag and carry them back into the woods to be tortured and cannibalized by the Santa Claus. The elite have wrapped this tale up in a nice red bow for you to, once again, unknowingly celebrate Luciferian rituals, child kidnapping, torture and cannibalism. 'Tis the season, the color is red. But we digress. The families have been called Avars, Illyrians, Khazars, as well as Draconi. The clan name people interpret as meaning a reptilian tribe, since we define Draco as meaning dragon. Dacia, which was changed to Dracia, and Draconi was the name chosen from the constellation Draco, which could be seen directly above their land at that time and was worshipped by them. We see more proof of this obsession with astrology when noticing the name of one of their kings. King Arcus I, who was named after a star called Arcus known as the Little Bear, which is in the Ursa's Minor system. Now Draco it is seen more over Russia and Scandinavia thanks to the last tilt. The list of names goes on and on as always. Draconian Star Wars was a weapons corporation specializing in fixed emplacement weapons. In case you wanted to know. Let us take a moment to look at the constellation Draco. We have discussed this before as well as much symbolism we will discuss today as well. However, as it is important to know, we will repeat and add more detail in this video than is in our previous ones. The constellation Draco, of Ursa Major, is one that never sets as it is one around the Earth's magnetic pole. Tugan meaning dragon, is the alpha star but not the brightest in the constellation and was the Egyptian North Star in the time we are discussing. The brightest star which we see clearly in the northern night sky is called Eltanan meaning dragon's head. In Chinese the constellation is called Ziwei-Yuan, meaning the first star of right wall of purple forbidden enclosure. The study of astrology in the Asian culture started in Babylon. They separated the northern constellations into 3 enclosures. The 3 enclosures are the purple forbidden enclosure, the Supreme Palace enclosure, and the Heavenly Market enclosure. The purple forbidden enclosure was the section of sky named after the Peking dynasty's imperial city called the Forbidden City, in Chinese Zihincheng, as it was the northernmost section and only able to be seen in a certain part of China, the lead star naturally being called the Emperor Star. The people of the time thought the North or Emperor Star was stationary and everything moved around it, hence the name of the star and the area. The elite are always trying to make the world revolve around the star, which is Lucifer. The Emperor lived in the Forbidden City and purple is the color used to depict royalty and power. Names of some stars are Crown Prince, Emperor, Great Emperor of Heaven. Draco includes several galaxy clusters and interacting galaxies. Close to the constellation Hercules, the story goes that Draco was a dragon, killed by the goddess Minerva who tossed it into the sky. Defeated, the dragon was one of the giants, the name given to the giants at that time, who battled the Olympic gods for 10 years. When Minerva threw dragon, it became twisted on itself and froze at the cold north before it could right itself. Draco is described as being the demon son of Gaia, also called Terra, Mother Earth. The great dragon who was thrown to Earth is Lucifer. Draco is also called as Dia, Shishumara, Marduk, and Anunnaki. In other tales Draco had 100 heads, a Medusa, who guarded the golden apple tree, and was put in the sky as a constellation for protecting the apples with valor. This story is also told in Hercules as one of his labors. There was a 100-eyed dragon who guarded the golden apples of Hesperides. He killed the dragon named Ladon with the poison arrow and took the apples. In yet another tale Draco was killed by Cadmus before founding Thebes in Greece. Another states the dragon guarded a golden fleece and was killed by Jason. The slaying of the dragon is depicted in hieroglyphs as a person with a spear stabbing the serpent in the head with the dragon creating the Omega symbol. The Omega symbol meaning the end. Both Omega and Draco are used as symbols for DNA. The DNA is sacred to them. Speaking of DNA, not all of the people in the tribes or families had the pure gene, and within Pannonia, which was a huge area, there was an elite group that was separated from the rest. It is the purebloods we focus on, for it is the purebloods who have enslaved humanity, and it is them we must free the people from. The archaeological finds have been satanic altars, temples, and a cave, which are located between the Danube and Tisa rivers, the heart of the elite's territory, on a hill now known as Mt. Hermon. Their mountain has been named many things through time. We know it is exhausting. It is meant to keep all who look in the dark, but we are the light in the darkness and we see all. The mountain was also named Sinai, Cetius, Jabal al-Sheikh, Babylon, Saffon, Kasrandri, the Mountain of the Oath, and more. The elite live by oath. Always remember that. They gave up their free will. As such they do all they can to strip you of yours. Sigma's 3 winged stars match up perfectly to the tops of the 3 Giza pyramids. This is the same with every major landmark including Stonehenge, Easter Island, the pyramids in America and Mexico and Atlantis and elsewhere. They all have corresponding constellations. We must stop taking sayings so lightly like, as above, so below. Words, sayings, names, mean more. We must be smarter and look deeper. Stop being what they think you are. Stupid and controllable. Sheep. There is always more. If ancient sites are all at specific locations and have specific meanings as forms of communication, then is the message received back found in astronomy not to be confused in any way with astrology, which is the worship of stars and sorcery. This would be a good reason to make the study of it taboo to keep the masses from learning the language. Prove them wrong. Be more. Back to the mountain. Mount Hermon has 3 peaks like the pyramids of Giza. It is surrounded by shrines to Baal, another one of the elite names for their god Lucifer, depicted as a bull or a sheep. The highest peak holds the chief Baal's sanctuary and is called the Mountain of the Oath, and the Eyes of the State, as well as Qibla, Tel El-Kadi, which means Mound of the Judge, and much more. On the mountain lies an area containing multiple shrines to Baal. Each Baal shrine at the base of the peaks faces upwards towards the sanctuary. At 858 meters or 2,814 feet above sea level, a limestone oval plateau was placed with the inscription of an oath. On the oval is a roofless, rectangular temple, complete with statues of Saturn and his eagle. Many will recognize this symbol used by the elite in Rome and many other lands. The eagle is loved by the elite as it is a warrior who can hunt and kill vipers. The surrounding lands also have a multitude of ancient altars, shrines and temples which all include the bones of animals and humans placed in circular trenches dug around the altar. We have seen such circular trenches including remains and archaeological finds all over the world including Stonehenge. You will find things lose much of their mystery when you relate them to the time they were made and by whom. I think giant may be the appropriate term. Mount Hermon is owned by the UN today and upon it sits the Bilderberg Hotel. The land sits between 3 countries, Lebanon, Jordan and Syria. Notice the Trinity symbolism. And what countries they are. As though the elite have a towering eye overlooking those they hate most. Archaeological finds in the area have always been shut down instantly and all artifacts taken and locked up, as we see in most archaeological finds dealing with the elite. This land is protected by law as of 1953. All digs of the area have been shut down upon immediate discovery of anything illegally protected. Wonder what they do not want you to find. What other inhabitants of Earth would we find if we were allowed to look? Towers, obelisks, pyramids, the altars, the black mirrors, the 3 keys of Solomon. The temples and the shrines are believed to be gateways, portals, to another dimension just like the Bifrost or Cern. Like most of their mountains, Hermon has an extensive cave system underneath it that is filled with crystals that do not form normally in that area. It has also been reported multiple times that Israel is digging tunnels in Mount Hermon to dump nuclear waste from Israel's nuclear reactor in Dimona. They do keep denying it though. It is all very hush-hush. Nimrod's castle is also located on Mount Hermon and is called Qalat al-Sabiba, which means Castle of the Large Cliff. When Nimrod was king, 1,000 years before the Kedar and Naphtali tribes appeared, he ruled over Babylon, Babel, Erech, Akkad and Calneh in the land of Shinar. He built a tower called the Tower of Babel. He built this tower on the highest peak of the highest mountain in his land as a stairway to heaven. This has been recreated today and is called Cern. The next archaeological find we see here is a small piece of stone tablet that was broken off of the full tablet. When translated, it mentions a battle where the author's father dies and his spirit goes to their ancestors. Also it talks of a king of Israel and Hadad who made the author king since it was his father's kingdom. It mentions returning to his kingdom and killing 70 kings who commanded thousands of chariots and thousands of horsemen. It states he kills Jehoram son of Ahab who was the king of Israel, and Jehoram's son Ahaziah who was king from the genealogy of David. The carving has a few words left on it which include some kind of siege. If we do a bit of work we see that during this time the ruthless Pananian king Boaz, his sons and 70 of his nobles were crucified by the only other comparable force of that age known as the Romans. It seems the tablet discusses this. Also during the time of this tablet there is a man, Barak, from the tribe of elite Naphtali in Panania then called Kadesh Naphtali, named for the bloodline of Kedar and Naphtali families. Barak, like many from this tribe, followed the rule of a judge, which is what we would consider a queen today. The judge's name was Deborah and she wanted to go to battle to recapture Mount Hermon as it seems they lost power over it for some time. Barak would go into battle only if she was by his side, and with a small army they slaughtered all of those who populated the area known today as Syrians. In a world where there are no coincidences, it is interesting to see the American Barak did the same thing. Who was his Deborah? In historical texts around and before 1st century BC, the Naphtali Pananians, who were now called Antes, were described by King of Jordan in his diary, where he states, "The offshoots from one stock now have 3 names, Venefi, Antes, and Sklaveni. They now rage in war, far and wide. In consequence of our neglect, our own sins enables them to continue the raids at will. The penalty for our sins being that they have become well known," meaning feared. Fear gives them control, and this king stinks of it. The Pananians' society's layout is widely unknown due to the fact that all who went into their lands in years back surrounded by woods never returned. Only stories and whisperings have been passed down in stories, poems, songs, plays and journals. No archaeological or historical study has ever looked or been able to look far enough in either direction to link the facts together until now. Censorship is rampant. We are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Knowledge which should be free but is kept from the enslaved. Freedom only exists when we speak the truth. All research is focused on one area, one century, or one subject, and if you step out of line, you are shut down. When you cannot see the forest for the trees, does that mean the forest does not exist? Should we stop spreading the truth because a small group of bullies has been allowed to keep us ignorant for so long? You have a decision to make. Will you spread the truth? Will you stand up for what is right? Will you live for something, or die as nothing, going along with the system that has brainwashed and controlled every aspect of your existence? Chanting with the crowd as we freedom fighters are slaughtered. You have seen the displays of the present-day revolutions, holding posters, chanting for freedom, marching or standing in place, recording videos and taking pictures of the corrupt shooting, beating and arresting your own in front of you. What good are your words? What good will words do what it is they take away? You have to shut up and act. It is not words that define us. It is our actions. The Pananian forest exists. For those who will see will understand the meaning. Let us look further. The weapon of choice for the elite has always been the falx. Since Naphtali's time, it is a type of short sword, used by the Druids, Pananians, Huns, and we see it used by ISIS today. The mercenaries owned by the elite of this area also were well known for fighting with the falx. They were also well known for being nomadic, equestrian, cannibalistic, and giant. Everyone else has primarily used spears, long swords, shields, daggers. All through history passages are found that describe horrifying beasts in the woods. Vampires, yetis, werewolves, cannibals, ogres, cyclops, giants. What are these creatures? What about the Flathead Lake Monster, the Jersey Devil, Gypsy, the Howler, the Chupacabra? What if the stories are true? Everything we are told is censored, terms are redefined, and most that we believe to be fantasy is real. Take a moment, and deep breath. Now, imagine, what if you did not know how to describe something you saw? Something so shocking, something you knew no one else would believe unless they saw it. If you saw a person, or more terrifying, a group of people, who were abnormally hairy, possibly deformed in some way besides being stunningly large, strong, who killed and ate people, who spoke a language you did not understand and never heard before, what words would you use to describe them to others when all you can think in your ignorant panic is do not go into the woods? Even if the terms used for them are inaccurate and sound outlandish, does that make the beings non-existent? What if it was mistranslated? That happens often enough. We have discussed giants before at length, and it is safe to say the proof is overwhelming. There are giants. You may be trying to argue why they are not seen much today, if at all. This is easy. For those who do still reach the size they used to, they are easily spotted, and we can find them living through history and today as well. In the year 3000 BC there was a recorded worldwide event that damaged the ozone layer, significantly reducing it to 1/7 its size. Because of this, nothing lives as long or can grow as tall as it did before then. Making the atmosphere thicker would probably be on their list of things to do. The elite have been doing this for some time now. Giantism has been proven to accelerate under the proper atmospheric climate, just as plants grow bigger and better under certain conditions. We can see this as well in animal life. Chameleons are a fraction of the size they were before, just like dragonflies, Komodo dragons and many others. Can someone say dinosaurs? Not only this, but the amount of iron concentrations in stalagmites found by marine geologists depicts a fast, sudden event at this time that concentrated the iron and created climate changes that we fear today. These results are only able to be found due to a massive and sudden event which causes water to press down on and move things, solidifying them in an oxygen void state. We see proof in fossils and archaeological discoveries. Not to mention one such event is depicted in every religion and every historical and geological work regarding those times: a flood. Fossils can only be produced over a short amount of time, with a certain amount of pressure and lack of oxygen. We do not turn into fossils simply because we die and are buried. To be mummified and to be fossilized takes a very specific process. The fossil process involves a sudden, heavy weight and a significant amount of water for pressure and wear. Mummies take a long, dedicated time to create. Everything has to be perfect for it to work too. As for other creatures and mysteries, one need only look around to find unexplained things happening constantly, especially in certain areas. Loch Ness, for example, Bridgewater Triangle, for instance, is a 200-mile area in Massachusetts, USA, where orbs, UFOs, big feet, and thunderbirds are a regular occurrence, along with cattle mutations. There are many such locations across the world. Bennington Triangle is another triangle area of activity. But we will continue on. Remember, the definition of words changes according to the elite's will. They control what we learn in schools, which are controlled by them. We must stop thinking so narrowly. We do not know everything, if we know anything at all, and in truth, we can only truly know that we know nothing. Atlantis, Tartarus, Hercules. Hitler preached the stories of Aryans as we see in his movies still today. The godlike white race of Herculean men and goddesses, pure and perfect, Many leaders in the past and present day have used stories or tales as examples of a goal humanity must now reach. We simply tease them for believing in dreams. The plain fact is that original documents written in ancient times about 2,500 years ago and more are based on real events. Whether passed through song or simply written out descriptions of the exact events themselves, they are the true remaining history books. So long as you translate them yourself from the original writing, the elite relied on misdirection. This effectively prevents you, your neighbor, your cousins, from understanding who and what they are. If you do not know your enemy, you cannot defeat it. Their crimes are not hidden, but free for all to see, easily available. They put it in your face. Everything they tell you, everything you ever learned is a lie. They only deceive, create illusion. We are here to clarify and rectify your education. Alakazar once warned, the audience will always look where the magician looks. The magician must never look at what he wants to conceal. The audience will treat as important what the magician treats as important, and as unimportant what the magician treats as unimportant. Moving right along, the Pannonians were neighbors to Rome and slowly bleeding into power. In 356 BC Alexander the Great was born. His mother Olympias, the daughter of Neoptolemus I, was from an area known as Epirus, also called Illyria, which is the Pannonian area. Alexander had a weakness for women and death, killing his uncle King Philip. King Philip's two sons by his wife Cleopatra Eurydice were killed by Olympias. It is unknown if Cleopatra killed herself or if Alexander and his mother killed her as well. This, all to regain power after the king had named Cleopatra's son as heir instead of him. Most of Alexander's rule was spent at war in Asia, Syria and other places. Eventually he died in Babylon. Now we have crossed a millennium into a new age. The lineage is easy to follow from that point to now, when we arrive in 6 AD to see another revolt against Rome by the Pannonian and Illyricum tribes. In 8 AD the revolt ended and a Roman poet Ovid completes his work The Metamorphoses and is immediately exiled for being a heretic, which as we know means free thinker, anarchist. In 9 AD, the Romans attempted to regain some pride in the Battle of Teutoburg Forest under the governor Verus. They were completely rooted out and it was classified as one of the greatest military defeats in Roman history. An altar of peace called Arapaces was inaugurated by Augustus in Rome. A year later Paul from Judea proclaims salvation for Jews and Gentiles alike. In 67 he was beheaded by Rome for being against the law, an anarchist. He was told by friends that they, meaning the elite, had been told about him that he teaches all the Jews living among the Gentiles to forsake Moses and that he tells them not to circumcise their children nor observe the customs. This apparently was a crime, as free speech usually is to the elite, and he was murdered. The elite have a lust for the beheading. The removing of the head, thankfully, is anonymous. We have no head. We removed it ourselves. In 23 Pliny the Elder, a historian and writer of the time, was born. In 26 AD, a new prefect to the Roman district of Judea is appointed. His name is Pontius Pilate, who was the Roman authority forced to judge the Nazarene Yeshua. In 30 AD, Emperor Nerva is born in the city of Narnia. Yeshua Christ, the child who was born to a Syrian refugee woman, in Nazareth, a small town in the Roman district of Judea, in 1 BC, is crucified during an eclipse. During this eclipse the hill he was crucified on was cracked during a simultaneous earthquake. There were reports and witnesses who wrote their experiences during this time, detailing how the sick were healed and the dead raised out of their graves. Sounds like a zombie apocalypse. Many dozens of prophecies were fulfilled during those few days. After 3 days, Yeshua was seen in the town again and remained there for several weeks until he disappeared. Yeshua was crucified because he exposed the elite and how they had corrupted the religious groups of that time. He exposed how the elite turned their temples into corporations to make money. He confronted the elite to their faces and exposed them for the world to see. He deleted the elite. And until we stand up as he did and destroy the corruption brick by brick and table by table, they will continue to enslave you. He fed the hungry, took care of the needy, and was friends with all regardless of occupation, past, or blood. From prostitutes, to homeless to tax collectors. It is time for this history to repeat. We are told Yeshua died at the age of 33. You can see for yourself, this is not true. But 33 is the highest level of Freemasonry, a subgroup of the Illuminati. And 33 is a favorite number of theirs, just as the image they give you of the one they call Jesus, which means Hail Zeus. Who is Lucifer? The image is just one of their bloodline, just another way to make themselves as gods. The elite are about deception to keep you from truth. Deception. They shroud everything in deception. It is easy now to see why Syria has always been such a focal point for them. Why it must at all costs be destroyed and the genealogy and history swept away in a cloud of fire and smoke. 36 AD Rome burns. Emperor Nero was born in the town of Antium in 37 AD. During this time Emperor Caligula, who is an interesting character you should look into, intended to invade the area across the Danube, then on to invade Britain. He deified his dead sister who was accused of having an incestuous relationship with him. Similar to the goddess Isis, everyone loved him so much that in 41 AD, he was murdered by Cassius Chaerea and Cornelius Sabinus at the Palatine Games. His wife Melonius Caesonia Major was also killed, and his infant daughter was killed when her head was smashed against the wall, just as the Jesuits loved to do it. By about 43 AD, the Romans had prospered in the Bronze Age and had knowledge of art, architecture, irrigation, and many other things. They were organized and rich. They sent legions upon legions into the woods over the last few decades only for the legions of 20,000 troops disappeared without a trace. The Emperor Claudius began the first large-scale Roman invasion of Britain. The battle was over when Claudius captured the town of Camalodunum known as Colchester today. Londinium, which is London, was founded the same year. The power of Rome, now held by the Vatican, has always had control over London, which is the banking arm of the elite. All banks are controlled by the Vatican, as are all banking families. The blood has now flowed from Rome to London. The first of the three city-states is formed. If you do not know what the three city-states are, they are the three locations controlled by the elite with their own government and law. They are not under any country or government outside the upper elite. The three city-states are Vatican City, the governing force, London, the banking force, and Washington, D.C., the military force. The Trinity here on earth that enslaves us all. A few years later, the kingdom of Thrace is absorbed into the empire as a province, and Claudius celebrates the games due to the 800th anniversary of the founding of Rome. We still have quite a ways to go, for the woods are lovely, dark, and deep, and we have miles to go before we sleep. Stay vigilant and expect more.